Well, I don't mean, okay. Okay, hopefully Raze was in fact ready. I think he was. But yeah, I have tomatoes, and my pepper is getting big, and I have a lot of catnip. But catnip's like a weed. It's like really not impressive if it grows. I'm so proud of it. Alrighty. Starting things off on Pillars of Gold. In the top right, as the red Protoss, it is Creature. And in the bottom left, as the purple Protoss, it is Raze. I don't know why I had it in my head that these, I know Raze is Protoss, but I don't know why I thought Creature was Zerg. I think I do this, like, every time, too. Yeah, I guess just because his name, right, Creature. But, yeah, no, he's Protoss. He's been Protoss. It's just a me thing. Alright. So it's either he's back on Sloth Esports, or hasn't bothered updating this particular clan and account on the clan. I'm not sure which one, but Wikipedia actually has him listed as Highstorm Gaming for the last team that he was on, having left, maybe, well, actually at this point 9 months ago, but apparently for Sloth Esports. Ray's been en route for a little while. So PvP then. Alright, Raze, gosh, I want to say that he's going to take this one, but I don't know. As good as Raze has been, and his, he used to be Terran, right? Like, that swap worked out for him. It feels like he hasn't really been able to push himself into the qualifying rounds, basically. Like, actually qualifying in this particular type of qualifier, which is actually region locked, right? So everyone has to be American or Canadian, as far as citizenship goes. I think it is. I'm gonna look up one more again. Here we go. Yeah. Both players might have a decent bracket. That's what I'm trying to look up. No Regret managed to get a very good seed up in the top there. Oh, okay, just killing this pylon. And then, let's see here. Jon Snow might eventually face No Regret for the qualification round. Yeah, that's actually going to be pretty tough. I still want to put Jon Snow as a potential qualifier. Qualifyee today, but that's going to be tough. Are there any absolute shoo-ins? I don't know about that. Even the people who made the qualifying rounds in previous tournaments, I don't know, I still feel like they don't have super easy brackets. It's actually the nice thing, I would say, about the qualifiers, actually also for Europe, with everyone, with the favorites already being invited, right? And then so many people actually qualifying, especially in Europe. You have 8 people qualify for each qualifier. Like, you're down to people that are really close and really could use the time in the spotlight, right? Like, they haven't actually gotten their chance to shine, and if they win this qualifier and appear on the main stage, if you will, because it's definitely not going to be on a stage, then it actually would be pretty cool. I think it gives them a lot of confidence for the future. I don't think anything too interesting has happened. I mean, nothing has actually happened as far as them fighting each other. There's probably a lot more interesting things that happen in regards to them scouting. No one was placed down a proxy pylon until literally just now, so this looks like just for adept harassment. It's not a bad thing to do at all. You got double chronos on probes, Forge and Robo for both players, despite slightly different openers as far as the units go. But everyone did get 6 actually. Oh, Creature got 8 units. So, I'm surprised he was able to... Did I miss units dying? Just a probe. How did he get... I'm counting correctly, right? Oh, 1 less Stalker, 2 Adepts. Oh, and 1 less Sentry. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Hit-ups are cheaper, after all. I was just wondering how they, like, their Robo and Forge was, like, so identically timed, you know? But that makes sense. Unfortunately, that pylon is not put down in time, and the depths easy peasy get on in. It's a simple pull away with the probes initially, but we're talking about maybe 4 probes going down here. Nope, just the 3. Almost got that last one. But still, when you're doing the exact same thing as your opponents, it is kind of brutal to lose 3 probes. Now you're going to just be simply down 3 probes. There's nothing much you can really do about that since you're both also saturating. I guess you just wait until you're both saturated completely. And then it evens out again. We're talking about very small differences, but there's that spike with the probe pool. Constant hallucinated Phoenix coming out here for Creature. Name of the game for PvP is a lot of scouting, but also making sure that you're scouting often enough that no deception is in play. Because it seems to be so easy to deceive. As we get into a normal PvP, I think the deception is getting like lower and lower. You're not really trying to deceive them into thinking that you're going into a Twilight Council when you're actually going to a Stargate. Like, you're not going into a Stargate at this point. So charge +1, no sight on any robo bays to like mix it up and think that maybe the Twilight Council is researching Blink, and it's actually going to be like a Blink Disruptor build. No. With the order of things here, them scouting each other, they should both know it's going to be charge a lot Archon. And the question more so is, we're going to have any attacks off of +1, or are we just going to wait until we have +2? And if we are going to wait until we have +2, slaps down that third base faster and actually gets to defend it. We're talking about Pillars of Gold, with the third base is really not that easy to take. I mean, especially... Yeah, just like in general. Not even... There's no especially to that. Just in general, it doesn't seem very easy to take. No matter where you take your third base, you're talking about some pretty good concaves for the opposing player. Maybe a little less so over here, but we'll see where... each one of them decide to take it. War Prism in the main base is going to grab a few more probes. Ditto, actually, for Raze's War Prism, which is now pushed back. Actually, very similar on the damage done. A pylon's going to go down instead of a 5th probe. Both things are going to be picked up here. It looks like it's double Archon, actually, for Raze, which, if you actually compare the 2 War Prism drops, double Archon is the better drop. It can chase down a double Immortal drop is usually what it is, or in this case, the double Soccer and Immortal drop. But it is also quite expensive. It's actually maybe not more expensive, more expensive on the gas, I suppose, but it is quite expensive, similar to a double Immortal drop. So both things can be very scary to do, but if nothing else is happening in the game, and there's definitely no Stargate, which they know there's definitely no Stargate, then more power to you. Creature was putting down a proxy pylon over here, but it got scouted, I guess. He still has this one over here, which could also provide some scouting for the third Nexus timing, but I think they both know the gist of where this game is going. That is a large Protoss force here. Raze was a lot better about getting to +2. He's a good 40 seconds ahead of his opponent. Putting more Chronos into it, perhaps, or just starting it ASAP. As they definitely had Forges built around the same time earlier on. Also, maybe the composition. We have 2 more Immortals for Creature compared to Raze's absolutely 0 Immortals, but where's the rest of Creature's army? This really doesn't look like all of it. Got a couple hallucinations coming in for Raze as well, and I do not see an Observer here for Creature. He does have an Overcharge. Okay, there was an Observer. There it is. Okay, so he knows about the Archons that are hallucinated. More importantly, his units know about the Archons that are hallucinated. Looked like Creature actually went for an F2, brought back a couple hallucinations of his own that don't necessarily help with that Observer. The AI isn't wasting shots here anymore, and they barely provide any type of sim city, and it looks like Raze's attack, despite having +2 the entire time, it still has +2, actually will not work out, and I'm awfully surprised by that. Creature kind of got jumped on, didn't have his entire army quite ready to go, wasn't even really in a concave, stood his ground, pulled in his reinforcements, and was able to push back. Perhaps some of that has to do with his 2 Immortals living probably longer than I would have expected. You know, if they're caught off guard with limited defense, then the amount of charge lots Raze can get will absolutely take them down. But they have been there from the beginning, getting a lot of damage done on the Archons especially, the meat of Raze's army. This counterattack might be able to do it. They both have +2 now, but the charge lock count might be high enough this time around. The War Prism is going to be used for offensive reinforcements, and Raze does not have a defensive shield battery, and that is just too many charge lots for Creature. And he still has the 2 Immortals chunking away here. GG. That was not a bad attack at all from Raze. It really wasn't. The +2 advantage was pretty extreme, and then he decided to go for a style that just forgoes the Immortals, which is not a problem, it's a decision. In that game, it might have ended up being a problem just because the Immortals ended up doing what they want to do, which is stay behind everything else and get a lot of good damage done. But in many other games, you have a slightly larger army supply, like more zealots to use, and those Immortals don't look nearly as useful when there's so many zealots. But that engagement went poorly for Raze. I guess the lack of tech units still showed. Not hiding buildings all over, they're really playing PvP. Honestly, it threw me for a loop. Alright, when I realized they were actually both going for like macro, no proxy pylons, I was like, so what are we talking about? What was this macro? Okay. I am so used to having to over-explain the amount of decision making the Protoss players have to do based on partial information, but they actually, I mean, they got all true information. Everything they scouted was actually what was going down. Alright, game number 2 here. In the top right, taking the last game, he is Creature for Sloth Esports. And in the bottom left, as the purple Protoss, he is Root Raze. Nice alliteration. Yeah, it's true. TLO and Namshar qualified. They are... I don't actually really know Namshar's situation. Absolutely, TLO is a resident of Canada, but I really don't know Namshar's situation. The reason I went with citizenship, though, is because for... Well, I guess it could be just, like, residency or citizenship, couldn't it? Yeah. Sometimes there are qualifiers that are based on where you live, like where you are literally right now. There's some qualifiers that are based on your citizenship, and there's some qualifiers based on other factors. And then we have the qualifiers that aren't really at all region locked. They're just server locked. They just say, if you live in Korea and are Korean, you can still play on the NA server, right? This one's definitely region locked, but I guess residency would be the common attribute for the 2 Europeans who currently live in Canada, and Jake, who currently lives in Korea, actually. Thank you, Dr. Fishopolis, for the tier 1 sub. Fishopolis. While we have some pretty normal PvP early opening stuff, I guess I'll go ahead and over-explain the process of this tournament here. So many of you are used to either TSL qualifiers or maybe the IEM qualifiers, and it is confusing to follow everything that happens. It maybe gets a little bit easier when there's a big, pomp and circumstance, and it's the offline big blowout, and it's like, okay, it's a bracket, and I get that, yeah. But the qualifiers, like, there's so many different types of qualifiers, I absolutely understand any confusion that might occur. This is very much so the replacement of the old WCS system, right? We're in the EPT system now, but if you guys remember the WCS system, there was the circuit that had America and the Americas, I should say. So North America, South America, all of Europe, right? And then they had their own challenger, and occasionally, depending on the tournaments, North America would also house some of the Australians, and South Americans and whatnot. Occasionally there was Mexico-only challenger. But anyways. Point is, there was that, and then there was Korea. So Korea and rest of the world, right? And the rest of the world was playing all those WCS stops that we all liked, right? At Montreal, at Austin, and blah, 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 blah. And then Korea just had GSL. Same dealio. Actually the same deal. Slightly different execution, but same dealio. There are qualifiers to get into your region's tournaments. So these guys are qualifying to get into the North American tournaments, where they will play out in a bracket style to crown the winner of North America. Same with Europe. They're playing their European qualifiers to get into their European tournaments to crown as one of the best players of Europe. Eventually, when all is said and done, everyone comes together with the top 6 players from GSL to play in a summer season finals. Which is just almost like having another tournament beyond, just for the excuse of having Koreans and non-Koreans face each other. So that's happening much later, and the Koreans have nothing to do with these qualifiers, or even the initial tournaments, championships. They're playing in GSL. So anyways, Creature was doing something interesting by trying to constantly abuse these adepts, but Raze is doing a good job of denying them, keeping your sentries up here so that they, even if they do bust down the wall, because they're very capable of doing that, you still force fill them out because their shade timings might be a little bit awkward, is pretty crucial. He built a large number of units to combat the adepts as well in case things did get overwhelming. If you only go for 4 or 6 units and they're going for 8 adepts, like, you could be in trouble just sheer number of units. So kudos for Raze to hold how he did. Unfortunately, you do have to respond so strongly to that, so sometimes it looks a bit awkward. Right now we actually have Raze trying to go up to technology where Creature is not. So that actually is the only explanation for their army supply difference. But Raze has a slight economic advantage. It is just slight, despite what looked to be, you know, some guy all-inning versus some guy defending. Well, the adepts are only the first step of this potential 2-base all-in. I mean, Creature is getting a forge behind this, but he's definitely planning on attacking. He is not getting his natural gases quite yet, and in this particular game, he is falling really behind on the technology, not because Raze already has a Twilight Council finishing, he's about to go into charge, but because he already has a Disruptor on the way, and that's going to be really hard to combat. Raze did see this move out. He knows what the deal is. He is building hella shield batteries, even some cannons. He's most likely anticipating a Resonating Glaives all-in, but he actually has not seen the Twilight Council, so it might just be like, that is a common thing to see. He just knows an army is on the way, and he doesn't care what a part of that army is. He just needs to defend. And he's definitely right about that, but I think he is totally fine to defend. It's really not that complicated of an army because it's not an adept-based army, just some of the last adepts from the earlier attacks. So Creature kind of moves in, does a little dance, and then is forced to really move out, even without having to deal with the Disruptor so far. But I do believe he saw it. I think he saw it on the high ground, as getting a Stargate is usually not something you do in just kind of like a random point in mid-game PvP. It's what you do against Disruptor play. Oh, nice snipe there by Raze. Grab the Warp Prism. If Creature has a recall, he could definitely recall these units out. There we go, there we go. I guess he thought he could tackle some of those leftover Stalkers. He wasn't wrong, but it's just dangerous to do. And now we're going to have a Colossus, actually. So that's kind of odd. Usually we see a Colossus if you're stuck on one base. Kind of desperately going for a Robotics Bay. So they can break the force field. You don't usually see it after you've already gotten Disruptors and after you've already done good things. This is funny. So this is what happens when you tap the hallucination button too fast. It's CC, I believe. Hallucination Colossus. When you mean to type Hallucination X, which is Phoenix. So it's not really an attempt to throw Raze off. He just accidentally made it and was like, well, I can still walk over, can it? And, oh yeah, it can. Unfortunate because Dark won a 10, but random player from Oceania will be in. I don't know if you're complaining about the whole system in general or what. +2 to +2. It gets a little more difficult to really put all the emphasis on +2 when it comes down to these Disruptor versus Phoenix games. But obviously upgrades still matter. Still building Colossus. Raze actually is going for a different style of PvP. He either might be doing it just because it's the style that he plays around with, or he might be doing it because he knows he was scouted and he knows Phoenix will be on the way. And Colossus, while yes, they get hit by Phoenix, they're so flipping tall, they don't actually get denied by Phoenix as well, right? Like, they can still take their shots even though the Phoenix is bothering them. Disruptors are actually hardcore denied by Phoenix. You lift the Disruptor, they can't shoot. You lift the Disruptor while it's shooting, it cancels the shot. So that might be more so why he's just going with the Robo units here, and 2 Colossus isn't bad to have in a defensive setup and chokes on high grounds. But we do have to keep in mind that they just have fallen out compared to the current composition of Creature for a reason. There is a reason they've fallen out in play. Phoenix looks at Disruptors to start things off nice and good, and that Disruptor's now on the front lines, get taken out. War Prism is available for Creature, so we can instantly reinforce here. And while it does look like Raze is doing okay defensively, still has 2 Colossus working for him. The Colossus are now at least getting shot by the Phoenix, and another Warpin from Creature could actually maybe change the tides, but he does not save that one Immortal. He's running low on Archons. The last second Immortal, should say, dies as well, and Creature is just going to tap out. GG. Attack didn't work to too poor of a degree. He's down 40 army supply, and that's that. Just didn't have enough to actually bust him down. Good control. Even though he lost the Disruptors, he still had a decent army otherwise, and we get into a tied series. Alright. Eternal Empire is the last map here. No double elimination. If you lose here, you actually just don't have another chance to get into the tournament. There's plenty of chances. It's just that now as you come down to the final chance, it does look a little brutal. With the depth of players in NA, 3 qualifiers with top 4 each advancing. They already took out a lot of the best North American players with their invites. There's actually a pretty high chance you see people that you don't usually see getting through. But still a lot of talent amongst that that not usually making it, I guess, league. Like, there's the Scarlet Special Neeb combo, right, that kind of sit up at the, you're gonna see them all the time in the, top 16, top 8, and maybe even top 4, right? And then below that for North America, you have some of the recognizable players for a lot of like the NA tournaments, for instance, guys who have won maybe some Kings of the Norths or Cheesadalfias, or have been contenders in the past, like Masa, he's gotten pretty far in past stream hacks. And then below that, you start talking about people who are actually just clawing each other's eyes out to qualify. And we're kind of at that point now. You're at that point. Maybe previously you're kind of like, I'm not too nervous. I think I still got this chance. Today you wake up, you look at the bracket, and you're like, oh. So, it sucks, but eventually we had to go down to the last qualifier. Had to happen. So whoever wins this one, this qualifier, not this game, will join the likes of Nina, Masa, Namshar, Tielo from last qualifier. Or first qualifier, actually. Semper, Vindicta, Firefox, and Silky from the second qualifier. And then... we don't... hold on. Main event, here we go. The invited players were Estrella, Neeb, Future, and Scarlet. There you go. So... I don't know, I'm actually like, really excited for the North American tournament. I know people are usually excited about the European one, and don't get me wrong, that's exciting, but... yeah. I'm actually really enjoying seeing all these guys show up, do some good games, try and qualify, all that good stuff. We do finally have a proxy in a PvP, so I'm starting to feel a little less weird about this. After casting so many European PvPs and Korean PvPs where it's proxy and early aggression, it was just like... it was like I was casting a 10th matchup. Didn't make any sense to me. There's no proxies, like not even just the pylon. In this case, Raze is actually proxying. It is just a Stargate, though, so more so looking for harassment, getting that head start, than looking for an actual win here. I'm gonna go ahead and Chrono that Oracle. He knows he's been scouted. That probe got awfully close to that pylon, but there's definitely ways you can still make it work. Creature is responding not as I anticipated. I do believe his intention was to go into a Nexus after 2 Gateway, but he kind of changes it up after that scout and adds on a Twilight Council first. Now, I have to imagine that it is for Blink, and Blink is no longer something you only get if you're dealing with Phoenix, something that you can just get. But I am so surprised to see him expedite that technology here. There we go, it is Blink. Did the Adept see that? Actually, it did. I'm assuming he got the click on it. The Oracle would have eventually seen it as well, but still, faster information is nicer. The Adept's got a handful of probes. They both have pretty similarly timed Nexus, so that's actually going to put Raze up for a while, because there's nothing's gonna happen because his army isn't that great. Creature is not going to counterattack until Blink is done, if then. So, even though Raze's army is a little flimsy, it doesn't actually matter. 4-worker lead is definitely better for him. 1 Oracle won't cut it, he knows that. He's not going to go ahead and go into a 2nd Oracle, which is a little surprising. I guess just going to use this one for stasis traps, and maybe if the natural isn't well protected in the future. And of course Revelation, but really not pushing the idea of harassing with these oracles. I think that's actually a really nice call, not just because he got his Adepts in to already do a bit of damage, but because he saw that he wasn't, 20, 30 seconds behind on the Nexus. His opponent did respond to the Stargate, not by, oh, I'm just going to respond perfectly with the units I typically have, but by saying, I'm going to get a faster Twilight Council. So the Adepts of Creature, unfortunately, kind of make up for everything I just talked about. So really cool timing there. Both of them letting the Adepts in accidentally. But the Oracle could probably grab a few more, and it grabs 2 right then and there. A Stasis Trap could affect some things too. Like, yeah, Creature does take the economic lead. But it's not as much as it was for Raze for a while there. The big spike is the probe pool, because Creature never probe pooled. Yeah, maybe it will be. I don't know, we're gonna see. Very slight difference. Very slight difference. This is overtime, and this is hitting like 150 of an income advantage. Like, it's not a whole lot. Both of them going Blink, by the way. Raze has shown a decent amount of Stalkers, which, to be fair, he's done the last game, actually. He, built Stalkers in response to the Adept pressure, but that just made sense because, well, you could build Adepts to deal with Adept pressure. Like, it's possible. The Stalkers are a little more flexible. They have that range. They're sturdy as well. And they did help him defend the follow-up push that eventually happened. But anyways, I think that maybe Creature would be reading into the Twilight Council being seen, the amount of Stalkers that defended his 2 Adepts, and also believe it is Blink. So that actually puts them in a funny position, because if you know for a fact that you have Blink and your opponent doesn't, then you are going to be out on the map a little bit more, bullying your opponent, trying to snipe off some units, getting a faster 3rd Nexus, and you both are going to eventually the same composition. Now, if that's Blink Disruptor, and we actually get one of those old-fashioned games or not, well, that's a different question, because actually this game, we are just going right into charge. So, I think it's more of a question of like, alright, we're both doing the same thing, I'm gonna get charge, you're gonna get charge. Are we gonna try and risk the lives of our Stalkers here, thinking that we're better at microing than the other person? And apparently neither one of them think they're capable of actually doing anything with their Blink Stalkers, so pretty tame setup here for what could sometimes be more action-packed games. Like, nope, 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 nope. Creature went faster into that charge, but they did get similar numbers of Stalkers, exact same numbers of Stalkers. Raze caught up a little bit and actually exceeded the worker count of Creature a little bit. Templar Archives gets thrown down. Creature already has a Robo, so that's another difference, but it's not being used for very much. Both of them, I think, might just go ahead and go into Mass Charge at Archon, and both of them skip via Immortal Production. Now, that's going to be fine up until a point. Eventually, you do want to start that Immortal Production. I'm talking like maybe 150 supply and nothing's happened, but that's very rare to happen in a PvP. Looks like that faster Robo guarding a War Prism is nice for harassment, but it's not so nice because maybe that could have been a faster Forge. Raze getting a much faster +1 than his opponent, and they're going back to typical army compositions where upgrades are going to be very, very crucial. Also, Raze has missed his gas here a little bit. That's not so good. You are talking about a period of time where they're now just trying to build Archon after Archon after Archon after Archon, so yeah. Oh well. Probably just checking the upgrades here with this Phoenix. War Prism had already come in, so it's not like it was necessarily checking for the army, but now that it's seen it and has Blink, yeah, leave the Adepts. It's not worth. Very dangerous play to use the Warp Prism against Blink Stalker openers, but Creature thought he could make something happen. Nothing really happened, and he's still supposed to be very worried about these upgrade differences. He saw that +1 is already done for his opponent. There's no way you can tell that it's like, you know, a 60-second difference on the upgrades, but he knows what he could have done, probably. Like, he knows he could have gotten a faster Forge, and he might be kind of well, scared, I guess, for the future. Yeah. Didn't see the Forge with those 2 Adepts, but still. Slot with the Hallucinating Phoenix. Stargate finally being cleaned up. War Prism. No, that's still an Oracle. So the Oracle eventually will probably die. But it has been getting some neat scouting. This has actually been a very passive PvP. Scouting hasn't probably gotten it too much. Nothing more than Creatures Hallucinated Phoenix have gotten him for roughly the same price as far as the unit-to-unit cost. But Raze actually went for the Stargate, so... I mean, did it get him a lead in the early game? Kind of? It's more the Adepts, I would guess, but... Anyways, we are so far past the opening really even mattering, to be honest. We're on to a point of PvP we just don't see anymore. So often, PvP either... It's about 1 or 2 base pushes, one base proxies, 2 base pushes, or it's about the +2 attack. Always the +2 attack. And in this game, Raze, despite having a much faster +2 attack, is actually not really setting himself up to use it. By going for a Colossus here and starting a Standard Thermal Lance, I do believe he's going to be a little more passive. He did just see his opponent take a 4th, or I saw the army posture to a 4th, but he actually didn't see it, and that's done.
Upgrade complete.
So, I was gonna say, if he sees his, opponent getting a 3rd base, he might be like, well, you mother trucker, like, I'm gonna go ahead and try and kill you. And he wouldn't necessarily be wrong about that with the upgrade lead, but now, by not seeing it, not only does he not try to use this potential upgrade lead, but he also doesn't get his own 4th Nexus nearly as fast. So that is a little concerning. And Creature is also working up to a Mothership, which Raze's Hallucinated Phoenix might be able to figure out if it just kept going a little bit farther back. No, that's not a Fleet Beacon, actually. It's 2nd Stargate. Oh, there it is. JK, you already saw it. I thought that was the Fleet Beacon for some reason. Clearly not. The Mothership Core is already on the way. I mean, the Mothership. Mothership Core hasn't existed in a while. Habits, guys. And anyways, that 2nd Stargate definitely confirms that it's not just a Mothership. I mean, when I've seen PvP go beyond +2 and 3 bases, we have seen some people dive towards a Mothership, but acknowledge that actually transferring over into carriers doesn't... It can't work. Like there's too much action going on, there's too many trades happening, carriers aren't good until a certain number. But that 2nd Stargate, I think, just revealed to Raze like 100% if a Mothership isn't already on the way, it's going to be, and also carriers are going to be. So if Raze isn't going to respond with his own Stargates, he does have more of the pressure to actually do something than his opponent does. Eventually, Mass Air is going to be the better composition. It's gonna take a while, though. I'm talking +1 carriers up to a count of maybe 6 or 7. And not, you know, trading poorly on the ground otherwise, so you actually have something to protect it with. We're not quite there yet. We're gonna be up to 4 carriers soon. Oracle did die here for Raze, so no easy peasy revelation on the mothership's cloaked units. Run by of zealots into a 4th base. That's actually pretty well protected, so I'm not so worried about that. It is about to be the attack. Can Raze bust his opponent before the carry numbers get too high? Or is it already too late? +3 is about to finish up, so it's a pretty nice timing. Creature is getting prepared to deal with this, warping in a bunch more zealots and cloaking his entire army. There is a single observer that I can see. That is a single observer for the entire game for Raze right there. Creature also only has 1 observer, but he's got the defensive setup, man. He's got the mothership, he's got the concave, and he could have an overcharge on his shield battery. He's actually not using it. He's pushing in really aggressively to his opponent, but is that the right call? His concave looks so damn good, and his immortals still have not been popped, but it was 4 Colossus and still a handful of Archons. It looks like Creature was absolutely correct in doing that. That was a strong statement there from Creature. He must have realized he was down an upgrade. He must realize that his carriers aren't really as helpful as they can be. Again, given some more units here. But he had the concave, he had some strong units on the ground, and he was ferocious. He was like, F your army, like, I can do this. And Raze's Colossus, I think, maybe a little bit of a bummer unit there. I don't think they really did as much as they were hoping for. It's kind of tricky with Colossus, right? Like, if they can get some nice shots, they'll pop out the Immortal Shields, they'll obviously do a lot of splash damage, which is always good. But as far as them burning up the Zealots like you think they would be good at, that's actually a little bit trickier. Oops, daisy. And now this time the Colossus are on the back line, so they're getting attacked first, not just by the Zealots, but also by the air units. We're up to 5 carriers now, still with Interceptors, and the Mothership, no way being actually target fired. Still only 1 observer from Raze, but it is doing the job. It's just that the actual army of Creature looks to be too good here. Raze, if he loses this fight, he absolutely loses the game. He's going to try and pull back and recall, but that is going to be very few units escaping from there. Just a handful of Archons and a couple of Stalkers. He didn't grab the 5th Nexus. He only grabbed 7 probes, and he's up against a person who can absolutely continue making carriers, adding to that count, adding to the upgrades. Raze going for a Fleet Peak and another Stargate right now is just not going to work. But it is the last chance. It's the last game. He's got to try. Creature, if he maxes out in any given amount of time, actually, as soon as he maxes out, I say he would go for the push. Chrono the +3, Chrono the +2 ship weapons, and then go for it, or just go for it now. That was a resounding victory there for Creature, so yeah, he definitely can move out. He's got 50 supply. He knows his opponent doesn't have any units, air units here to combat him. If he does, they're literally building. Like, 2 are popping out. But we know that that was a very late response to the Fleet Beacon, so there's absolutely no air units. We're talking about 7 Archons, 12 Zealots, 3 Stalkers, and a Sentry to the might of Creature's army. That 5th base is going down. Even a Time Warp. You don't see these actually affect the game too much. Why not? Archon's doing a decent job taking out the Interceptors, but while they're dealing with the Interceptors, they're not killing the carriers themselves, they're not killing the Archons, they're not killing the Immortals, and Raze is forced to tap out. Creature with the 2-1 victory moves on in the bracket.